Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin Long. I'm an independent JD Edwards consultant, and my company is Creekview Solutions. In this video, we're going to take a look at a Microsoft Office add-in that will allow you to sign into JD Edwards and launch an orchestration directly from Excel. I will walk you through installing the add-in from the Office Store and then set up a workbook to call an orchestration which will create sales orders. We'll take a closer look at the sales order orchestration so you understand how the pieces fit together, and then we'll create some sales orders. Next, we'll take a quick look at a more robust example that sets up customers. I plan to do a deeper dive on that solution in a separate video, but there are a couple points I'd like to highlight regarding the add-in. Finally, I'll offer some hints that will hopefully make your experience with the add-in a positive one, so please stick around to the end. Installing the add-in is very simple. From within Microsoft Excel, click on the Insert tab, and then click on the Get Add-ins button. In the store, search for Launch Orchestration for JD Edwards Enterprise One, and when you find the add-in, click the Add button. Then click Continue. Once it's installed, you will see it on the Home toolbar. To start the add-in, click on the Launch Orchestration button. There are 3 steps to set up and configure the workbook to launch an orchestration. First, you need to connect to the AAS server. This is the server that runs the orchestration. If you're not sure about the address, talk to your CNC team. Second, sign into the JD Edwards AAS server using your JDE user ID and password. Third, select the orchestration you wish to set up in the workbook from the drop-down of available orchestrations. The Stop on Error checkbox determines if the add-in should continue processing if an orchestration returns an error. This will make more sense in a few minutes. Click on the Set Up Orchestration button. Notice that some headings have been added to your worksheet. The blue columns will be passed in as inputs into your orchestration. The green columns will be the values returned from the orchestration. Let's save the workbook before we take a look at the orchestration. All of the information to configure the add-in to call the Create Sales Order orchestration has been saved within the workbook. No user IDs or passwords have been saved. This is the orchestration we just set up from Excel. I kept it very simple. It's just a form request to the P4210. Within it, we start with a customer service inquiry form and press the Add button. Then we go to the Sales Order Detail Revisions form, and we enter 3 fields in the form header: the branch plant, the ship to address, and the date requested. For each sales order, we only enter these values once. In the grid, we will enter items and quantities, and once everything is entered, we will click OK to save the order. Next, we will return the sales order number and the order type that was just created. Then we will cancel out of the sales order detail revision form and close the P4210. Looking at the inputs for the orchestration, we can see we have the 3 header fields that are only set once per sales order, along with an array of item numbers and quantities that are loaded in the grid. The output for the orchestration is the order number and the order type that were created. So let's go back to the workbook that we set up earlier and create some sales orders. First, I'm going to move the item number column before my quantity. I find it more intuitive to enter the item number first. You can sequence the columns in any order you like, but be careful not to change the names. Note the detail lines have the array name, a period, and then the field name. You should be mindful not to use a period in any of your input or output names. The add-in is going to start at the top of the worksheet, build the input for the first sales order, call the orchestration, and then write the output data before moving on to the next sales order. So how does the add-in know when one sales order ends and the next one begins? It simply looks at the fields which are not part of an array. If any of those fields change, in this case the business unit, shipped to, or date requested, it will launch the orchestration. If all of the non-array fields are blank, the detail lines are considered part of the same order. Normally, I'll key the header data once so it's easy to see the groupings. In the customer creation example, I use some conditional formatting to visually group the customers. You'll see that in a minute. When we open the add-in this time, you'll see that two of the sections no longer appear. Once the workbook has been configured to point to an AAS server and a specific orchestration, it cannot be changed with the add-in. The reason is I view configuring the workbook as part of the solution creation that would be done in conjunction with the orchestration development by a BA or a super user. The actual transactions would be created by an end user who would enter the data in the worksheet, sign into the AAS server, and run the add-in. When we sign in and run the add-in, you will see that it creates 3 sales orders. Notice that the Worksheet tab is updated with the date and time that the add-in completes. It also signs you out of JD Edwards. So what happens when we pass in some bad data and the orchestration returns an error? Let's put on a bad business unit and try it. I'm going to click on the Stop on Error checkbox so when the orchestration returns an error, it does not continue to the next order. As you can see, the P4210 did not like my RC business unit and returned an error message. Here is a quick look at a different solution that creates customer records. This is an example of setting up a new customer with locations across Western Canada. The customer is made up of 9 store locations that roll up to 3 regional locations, and those regional locations roll up to a head office. A couple of things to point out. First, there are 2 arrays as part of the inputs for creating these locations, one for the email addresses and another for their phone numbers. As you can see, the number of rows in each array do not always match, and that's fine. The second thing you might have noticed is that I have letters in the customer number output column. This is to help with pointing the various locations to the right parent. Let me filter the data to show you just the rows with the header information. Notice that the parent column for each location contains the letter of its parent from the customer number column. In the parent column, I am using a simple formula to populate the parent number with the value from the customer number column. When the head office is set up and the orchestration returns its customer number, every parent cell with the value of A will now have the address book number of their parent, and that value will be passed in when the add-in processes the next location. Let's remove the filter and create the customer's locations. I will be going into the solution in more detail in a separate video, so please subscribe to my channel and click on the notify button so you know when it's published. Finally, I have a few hints I'd like to share with you to hopefully make your experience with the add-in more positive. Try to avoid self-signed certificates. So if you're using the JD Edwards Trial Edition as a sandbox, it's best to install certificates from a certificate authority. You need basic authentication configured in order to set up an orchestration. This should normally be set up, but I have seen instances where it wasn't turned on or set up correctly. When setting up your workbook, if you can connect to the AAS server and sign in, but you don't get a list of orchestrations in the dropdown, this is one of the places to check. Finally, you cannot be editing a cell when you click the Run button. Before you click the Run button, take a moment to ensure you completed any changes. Of course, if I can be of assistance with JD Edwards, Orchestrations, or the add-in, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to answer questions when I can, and I'm always open to working with new customers. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and I sincerely hope that you find the add-in a useful tool. I'm always looking for ways to improve it, so don't hesitate to send me feedback. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email, or leave me a comment. I will provide links in the description. Take care and stay safe.